Chapter 21, Perfect World Fujimi Academy. Busujima Psycho gripped her newly acquired katana and sliced cleanly through the head of a zombie. What has this world become? She flicked the blood off the katana and held it horizontally in front of her, the cold steel reflecting both her deep blue pupils and the approaching zombies surrounding her. Sensei, squat down. The blonde beauty with an explosive figure looked momentarily confused. But before her mind could catch up, her body reacted instinctively to Psycho's words. Whoosh! Psycho moved decisively, her katana tracing a deadly arc through the air. Thud! 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 3 zombies collapsed instantly, unable to react. Wow! Psycho-san is amazing! Marikawa Shizuka, still crouched on the ground, clapped her hands excitedly, her eyes sparkling with admiration. Psycho sighed helplessly and pressed a finger to her lips, signaling for silence. Shizuka immediately covered her mouth with both hands, her large eyes blinking as she gazed up at Psycho. You can stand now, sensei. Ah. Right. Shizuka nodded rapidly, picking up the medical kit she had taken from the school infirmary before following closely behind Psycho. Psycho continued clearing the corridor of zombies, her thoughts running in the background. These things weren't hard to deal with, but there were just too many of them. She glanced through the window, her expression grim. The dead swarmed toward the school in droves. Judging by the sheer numbers, the first floor had likely already been overrun. Psycho gripped her katana hilt tighter, her fingers turning white. Even with her exceptional sword skills, she was still human. She could get tired. She could get injured. But the zombies? They never stopped. This school isn't a place we can stay for long. But how do we escape? As she stared at the seemingly endless sea of zombies, for the first time, a deep sense of despair threatened to creep into her heart. But waiting for death wasn't the way of the Busujima family. Sensei, are you willing to move forward with the resolve to die? Psycho turned to Shizuka, seeking her opinion. Shizuka placed a finger on her lower lip, deep in thought. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, her eyes brightened, and she reached into her skirt. Ah! Found it! She pulled out a piece of black parchment that radiated an ominous aura. Why don't we ask the devil for help? Shizuka offered the parchment to Psycho like a child showing off a treasured find, her eyes full of expectation. Psycho! For a brief moment, she regretted expecting anything serious from this airheaded nurse. Yet, seeing the anticipation in Shizuka's gaze, she sighed and took the parchment. Devil summoning contract document. It certainly looked legitimate. Hee. Psycho-san, don't underestimate this thing. Shizuka lowered her voice conspiratorially. This parchment appeared in the infirmary out of nowhere. No matter how many times I threw it away, it always returned to the same spot. Even fire couldn't burn it. It's definitely a devil's prank. She nodded to herself as if fully convinced. Isn't it more likely to be some student's prank? Psycho wanted to say that, but before she could, a pen was already being shoved into her hand. She silently glanced at Shizuka's bouncing figure and muttered under her breath, is that a dimensional storage pocket? Forget it. She'd just humor her for now. With that thought, Psycho took the pen and signed her name at the bottom of the parchment. Alright, let's play along. Before she could finish, the empty corridor was suddenly engulfed in dazzling light. Buzz! A pitch-black magic circle appeared beneath Psycho's feet. Her pupils shrank, and she instinctively tightened her grip on her katana. Step! Footsteps echoed through the corridor. Are you my contractor? Psycho looked up, her expression blank. A man with black hair, red eyes, and a noble bearing stood before her. A real devil. She could hardly believe it. But the magic circle beneath her feet was undeniable proof. Tear! Black wings tore through the fabric of the uniform he was wearing, unfurling majestically. The real deal. Psycho's eyes widened in shock. She opened her mouth but found herself momentarily speechless. Smack! Lynn's wing casually swatted away a sneaky hand reaching toward him. Ow! That hurt. Shizuka, who had been trying to touch his wings, crouched behind him, blowing on her hand to ease the sting. Psycho's eyelid twitched. Taking a deep breath, she asked, Sensei, what are you doing? Hee. Shizuka laughed sheepishly. I just wanted to see if they were real. Psycho! Can't you show at least a little respect toward a devil? Be careful, he might just turn this world into a living hell. Wait! The world was already a living hell. As Psycho and Shizuka exchanged words, Lynn was deep in thought. The moment he saw Psycho Busujima, he instantly recognized where he was. One of the classic low-level worlds. A well-worn setting. But for him and his peerage this world was perfect. An ideal training ground. Especially with how weak his peerage members currently were. Lately, Lynn had been thinking about how to help Yuta and Maiko level up efficiently. Modern society was too restrictive. Cursed spirits were common, but they gathered in places with lots of people. If he didn't want to draw attention, he could only hunt them at night. But that was way too inefficient. This summoning contract, however, a perfect solution. A world overrun by the undead was essentially a natural low-level grinding dungeon. From now on, this would be his peerage's training ground. Besides, this world also had potential peerage members. Lynn glanced at the ability displayed on his system panel evil pieces. For some reason, he had a feeling it would be much easier to recruit new members here than in his own world. With that in mind, Lynn turned to Psycho, a faint smile playing at his lips. So. He stared at her intently. Contractor, what's your request? Psycho took a deep breath. She never expected that parchment to actually summon a devil. Her entire worldview felt like it had been turned upside down. After all, who would have thought devils really existed? But, considering how the world had suddenly fallen into chaos, maybe the appearance of a devil wasn't that strange after all. Either way, he was already here. She might as well ask. Psycho's eyes flickered as she carefully chose her words. Then, devil. Can I ask you to? She exhaled slowly. Save the world. To be continued. Save the world. Sure. Lynn accepted Psycho's commission without hesitation. No matter what the request was, the best approach was always to agree first. How and when to fulfill it was entirely up to him. A warm smile appeared on his face as he spoke considerately. I have two plans, one is more radical, the other more conservative. Which one do you want to hear first? Could he really do it? Save the world? Psycho was stunned. She had only asked to see how this so-called devil would react. But now, she hadn't expected two plans. It was as if the apocalyptic crisis that threatened all of humanity was nothing more than a trivial issue for the demon before her. Lynn's power was likely far more terrifying than she had imagined. And he was also much more agreeable than she had expected. Not at all like the hideous monsters described in myths. Setting aside her scattered thoughts, Psycho pondered for a moment before responding. Let's hear the radical plan first. The crisis in your world right now stems from these zombies, right? Lynn walked over to the window, looking down at the horde of swaying zombies below. That's right. Psycho nodded, her voice lowering. This afternoon, the outbreak happened suddenly. She turned to Lynn, her gaze serious. I don't know the full situation beyond the school, but with how contagious this virus is, the spread won't be slow. In the worst-case scenario, it could affect the entire world. As someone who had seen zombie movies, she understood the horror of such an outbreak. But she had never imagined that something once confined to fiction would actually happen. The thought of a world overrun by the undead made her fall silent. Moreover, she continued, even after all this time, the military hasn't responded. She had already prepared herself for the worst. It's fine. Lynn's voice was relaxed. Even if the whole world becomes like this, I can just clean the surface, can't I? Clean the surface? Psycho's eye twitched slightly. She silently stared at Lynn. He didn't sound like he was joking. Even humanity's ultimate weapons wouldn't be capable of cleansing the entire world, right? But, could a devil really accomplish such a thing? However, if you do that, Psycho said flatly, the surviving humans would die too, wouldn't they? Along with the zombies. Lynn shrugged. Then that's none of my concern. That was a very demonic answer. Despite looking completely human even wearing a school uniform. Psycho's gaze shifted to the name tag on Lynn's clothing. Shuchin Private Academy. Devils go to school too? She set that question aside for now and decisively dismissed the radical plan. Tell me about the conservative plan. As expected. Lynn's smile grew warmer. This one is even simpler. He turned to face Psycho, amusement in his eyes. I'll grant you the power to grow strong enough to save the world. Then, when the time comes, you can decide for yourself how to do it. Lynn only had two objectives in this world. First, to use it as a regular training ground for his peerage. Second, to recruit new members. And Psycho was undoubtedly a talent he wanted. Hearing the second plan, Psycho froze. To be honest, she had never actually wanted to save the world. At least, not yet. Her priority right now was survival. And for that, she needed power. The power to survive. The power to protect others. Psycho's gaze shifted to Marikawa Shizuka, their group's mascot. Shizuka, hi? She still looked completely clueless. Psycho was discussing with a devil, how to save the world. A devil. Saving the world. Putting those two ideas together. Was this a joke? Yet, Mr. Devil had actually given a serious response. Mr. Devil was a good person. Shizuka suddenly realized this. Psycho. If she hadn't been taking care of Shizuka, the air-headed nurse wouldn't have lasted long. If not eaten by zombies, she'd have been killed by other desperate survivors. And honestly, that might have been a far worse fate. The collapse of human civilization. Psycho let out a quiet sigh, then made her decision. Then I choose the second plan. If she grew strong enough to save the world, that also meant they would be strong enough to survive. So soon. Lynn tilted his head slightly. Aren't you going to ask about the price? Psycho's gaze remained steady, unfazed by the mention of a price. There was no such thing as a free meal. She had understood this since she was 5 years old. Much less when making a deal with a demon. Shizuka, on the other hand, was stunned. Eh? There's a price. Psycho. Yet, some people never learned. Ignoring Shizuka entirely, Psycho met Lin's gaze and spoke firmly. If you wish, you may take everything from me. My body, my soul, my emotions, my memories. If that is the price, so be it. She needed power. She needed to survive with her friends. And if she truly did become strong enough to save the world, then perhaps she would. Lynn remained silent for a moment. Then, he chuckled. You have quite the resolve. But don't worry, all I need is you. Psycho blinked in surprise before a small smile formed on her lips. Thank you for your favor. From this moment on, I am yours. Psycho gave herself up without hesitation. After all, he was a devil. A devil who casually spoke about wiping the surface clean as if it were nothing. If he truly wanted something, she wouldn't be able to resist anyway. So why not take the initiative? Perhaps it would even leave a good impression. Honestly, she was more surprised that a devil would seriously discuss the commission with her. Even for something as absurd as saving the world, he had actually given her a plan. It completely overturned her previous notions about devils. She had no reservations about entrusting everything to the one in front of her. Besides, she would gain power. For someone who had nothing, this was already a great deal. I'll gladly accept everything you have. Lynn didn't hold back at all. Recruiting Psycho into his peerage had been one of his goals from the start. Since she was so willing, there was no reason to refuse. He raised his hand, and a black chess piece materialized. Psycho blinked in confusion. What is this? An evil piece. Once it's placed inside you, you'll become part of my peerage and be reincarnated as a devil. I see. She immediately understood. So, reincarnation as a devil equals gaining power? Peerage equals servant? Psycho quickly grasped the general concept. She nodded. Understood. What do I do next? She stared at the piece in Lin's hand with a slightly strange expression. Was placing it inside her meant literally? No rush. Lynn smiled and withdrew the evil piece, replacing it with a flickering black lightning bolt at his fingertips. It's a bit noisy here. Let me clean up first. Psycho's eyes widened as she stared at the black lightning. Even as an ordinary human, she could feel the immense power radiating from it. Lynn casually pointed toward the end of the corridor, where countless zombies were climbing the stairs. Several had already started shuffling toward them. Lynn chuckled. Go. With a flick of his finger, the lightning shot forward like a wild beast unleashed. Psycho's gaze instinctively followed it. But before she could even turn her head, a deafening roar filled her ears. Boom! The entire school building trembled violently. Shizuka staggered, then crouched against the wall in a panic. What was that? An earthquake. Psycho ignored her. When she finally turned to look, her pupils contracted sharply. The corridor was now littered with charred zombie corpses. The staircase at the end had completely vanished, leaving behind a massive skylight. The surrounding area was still burning, the residual heat warping the air. Psycho's breath caught in her throat. That lightning hadn't even targeted the zombies. And yet, it had incinerated everything in its path. What terrifying power! Psycho's heart pounded, and when she looked at Lynn again, a flicker of fanaticism shone in her eyes. Lynn lowered his hand, satisfied. Lightning magic, definitely a super-tier spell. A casual strike had been enough to cause this much devastation. If he unleashed his full power, he could probably turn the entire school into scorched earth in an instant. All right, now it's quiet. Lynn expanded his magic perception. They were on the 3rd floor. No zombies. No humans either. And the corridor had been physically separated by him. If any zombies wanted to get up, they'd need to stack their way up. Psycho's eyelid twitched at his words. The 3rd floor was definitely quieter. But she glanced outside. The explosion had likely attracted every zombie in the vicinity. Still, as long as Mr. Devil was satisfied, it was fine. Lynn took out the evil piece again. Now, let's begin the reincarnation ceremony. Yes. Psycho's eyes turned serious. She wasn't sure what this ceremony entailed. How exactly was he going to bury that chess piece inside her? First step. Psycho listened carefully. Take off your shirt. She blinked. Take off her clothes? She replayed his words in her mind to make sure she hadn't misheard. A brief silence. Then, without hesitation, she moved. After a few seconds, she gripped the hem of her shirt and asked, "Take it off completely." Lin shook his head. "Just unbutton the back and turn around." That was all. Psycho let out a small breath of relief. It was still embarrassing, but at least she could cover some parts. But if I turn my back, what exactly is he going to do? The thought briefly crossed her mind as she turned around. And then, she saw Shizuka. Still squatting in the corner, curled up. Psycho. Shizuka-sensei, the shaking is over. Hi. Shizuka finally looked up. And immediately saw Psycho in nothing but her black lingerie. She blinked. Psycho-chan, are you hot? When will this clueless teacher realize the situation? Psycho sighed, then reached back to unfasten her bra. Her two ample curves bounced forward slightly as they lost support. Lin wasted no time. He pressed the evil piece against her smooth back. MMM. Psycho trembled slightly, warmth creeping up her cheeks. No matter what, she was still a woman. They had just met, and she was already half naked like this. Would he think she was shameless? Should she have been more reserved? Maybe she shouldn't have been so straightforward. Before she could dwell on it further, the piece sank into her body. A clear notification rang in Lin's mind. Ding! You have obtained the peerage member Psycho Busujima. Ding! Your peerage member Psycho Busujima has been reincarnated as a special devil blade devil. Chapter 24, Tail Stroking is Mandatory. Boom! Boom! Psycho had no time for distractions. The moment the evil piece entered her body, everything changed. Her heartbeat quickened, her blood boiled, and her muscles and bones underwent drastic transformations. But what stood out the most was the strange, tingling sensation spreading across her back, waist, and tailbone. MMM. Psycho let out a soft gasp. It feels like something is coming out. She didn't resist the sensation, instead allowing the transformation to take its course. Ahem. Her pale, flawless skin writhed unnaturally. And the next second, a pair of black wings burst from her back. At the same time, a tail with a heart-shaped tip slipped out from beneath her skirt, swaying in the air before. Poke. It brushed against Lin's face. Lin instinctively grabbed it and absent-mindedly rubbed it. Ahem. Psycho's legs nearly gave out, and she braced herself against the wall. Her underwear shifted slightly, exposing a hint of pink. Her breath was ragged, her gaze hazy. Agility, I0. Durability, I0. Magic power, I0. Inherent abilities. Yearning for killing. The stronger the desire to kill, the faster ability values grow. Limits can be surpassed. Blade Devil. Slash. Innate swordsman, able to grasp any sword-related skill at a glance. Enhanced strength growth rate. Enhanced agility growth rate. Devil transformation, body weaponization. Dash. Third peerage member acquired. And another special devil. Lin began to wonder if the probability of obtaining special devils with the evil pieces was even real. 3 recruits so far, and all had been special cases. Or perhaps, the transformation depended on the individual's innate potential rather than randomness. Setting the thought aside, he refocused on Psycho's skills. Yearning for killing. It was eerily similar to one-track mind, a skill from another world. Lin wasn't too surprised. Given Psycho's hidden nature, this was practically made for her. Then there was Blade Devil. An innate swordsman talent. Anything related to swordsmanship could be mastered at a single glance. A true monster in close combat. As for her first ability. Slash. No further explanation. Just a single word. And in most cases, the shorter the description, the stronger the ability. Lin had a gut feeling, this skill was far from ordinary. After taking a copy of her status, he handed it to Psycho. Here. Psycho took the paper, her expression puzzled. What's this? Lin gave his usual explanation of the blessing system. A realization dawned on her. They were all young people. And nothing was easier to understand than killing monsters to level up. No wonder this power could eventually save the world. Muttering to herself, Psycho glanced at the paper. Her gaze lingered on a particular section. Master, Lynn Valifor. So this was his full name. She silently repeated it in her mind several times, engraving it deep into her memory. Then she moved on. All ability values were at I0. She scanned her skills. And when she reached yearning for killing, her grip on the paper tightened. Her gaze flickered to Lin. He met her eyes and simply smiled. Don't worry, Psycho. We're devils. Psycho froze. Then. She smiled. Yes, she was already a devil. Human morals no longer applied to her. What was so wrong about a devil who craved battle? As long as her master didn't hate her for it. Would he? No. The thought unsettled her, but she pushed it aside. Her skill suited her perfectly. Poke. Something prodded her waist. Saiko turned, confused. Shizuka, what is it? Shizuka had finally snapped out of her daze. She was staring at Saiko's waist. The exact spot where her wings had emerged. Then, she whispered, Saiko, you're not human anymore, are you? Saiko gave her a flat look. Didn't you just see it for yourself? Shizuka hesitated for a moment before puffing out her chest proudly. Then I'm not human either. Saiko. Shizuka put her hands on her hips and declared. I want to become a devil too. Saiko. Shizuka, do you even understand what it means to become a devil? Saiko's expression turned serious. To be honest, if Shizuka became a devil, she would be much safer in this world. Saiko had only just undergone reincarnation, but even she could already feel the incredible difference. Her body was stronger. Her reflexes were faster. And magic now flowed through her veins. With just these changes alone, zombies had no chance against her. Not to mention the blessing system and her powerful, awakened abilities. If Shizuka became a devil, she wouldn't have to worry about her survival anymore. She could fight freely, train freely. And most importantly, she wouldn't have to babysit her anymore. Saiko's breath grew heavier at the thought. Besides, her master didn't seem opposed to recruiting more peerage members. Or rather, it might be exactly what he wanted. Still, as a friend, Saiko needed to make sure Shizuka truly understood. Shizuka, do you understand what it really means to be a devil? Saiko asked again, her tone more solemn. Of course. I'm smart. Shizuka grinned. Then, she suddenly dashed over and latched onto Lin's arm. Lin instantly felt himself sink into an overwhelming softness. Shizuka stood on her toes, leaned in close, and whispered confidently. Becoming Mr. Devil's pet. That's what it means, right? Saiko. In a way, Shizuka wasn't wrong. Alright, as long as you understand. Since she was aware of the consequences, Saiko had no reason to stop her. But, while the master seemed willing to accept new peerage members, he couldn't possibly take everyone in, right? Would he even consider someone like Shizuka? Master, what do you think? She had already started addressing him as master naturally. Lin looked at her with satisfaction. Shizuka also knew who had the final say in this matter. She hugged Lin's arm and shook it eagerly. Please, please take me in as a pet, Mr. Devil. It was the first time Lin had ever heard such a request. And naturally, he had no reason to refuse. His system panel lit up, the evil piece flashing. This meant that Shizuka qualified to become a member of his peerage. No problem. Lin agreed without hesitation. Yay! Shizuka cheered, practically bouncing in excitement. Saiko let out a small sigh of relief before smiling. She was genuinely happy for her. Lin materialized another evil piece. But before he could even explain, Shizuka had already let go of his arm and started unbuttoning her shirt. Her expert movements made Saiko's eyelid twitch. She couldn't help but comment, why are you so skilled at this? Hi. Shizuka tilted her head, then blinked. But didn't Saiko-chan do the same? She turned to Lin, as if asking for confirmation. That's right. Keep going. Lin nodded approvingly. Encouraged, Shizuka neatly removed her white blouse, leaving only her pink lingerie. Okay, turn around. Shizuka hesitated. Does it have to be placed on the back? You can choose, but the back is the most reasonable position. Shizuka pondered for a moment, then patted her smooth, flat stomach. Then put it here. Lin. Agility, I0. Durability, I0. Magic power, I0. Inherent abilities. Recovery Devil. Bodily fluid recovery, blood and other body fluids can restore health, stamina, etc. Status recovery, can remove negative conditions. Enhanced stamina growth rate. Devil transformation, juicing mode. Dash. Lin. Good news. There was plenty of space on her status panel. Bad news. The upper part was blocked. He couldn't see her name or level properly. But even more concerning was this new skill, Recovery Devil. At first glance, it looked like a healer-type ability. Perfectly suited for Shizuka. But that last part. Devil transformation, juicing mode. Lin. Ding. You have acquired the skill Recovery Devil. Lin. He didn't want this skill. It was fine for Shizuka. But him. His. Lin forcibly looked away. He decided then and there. This skill would be buried deep in his system. He would never touch it. Ever. After regaining his composure, he moved on. He needed to print a copy of Shizuka's blessing data. But before that, he stopped. Then, in a deadpan voice, he said. Lift your chest. It's blocking the name and level. Hi. It took Shizuka a moment to process his words. Then, she simply lifted herself with an "oh." Finally, Lynn finished the copy and handed it to her. Shizuka studied it carefully. Oh. So Mr. Devil's name is Lynn. Then she saw her title. Recovery Devil. Her eyes lit up. This suits me perfectly. I love healing people. But. Her gaze drifted to the last part. But what's juicing mode? She looked at Lynn in confusion. Lynn hesitated. You'll find out later. He wasn't sure if she really didn't get it. Or if she was just pretending. After all, this so-called innocent teacher had a habit of pulling off outrageous things under the guise of being an airhead. Psycho, do you know? Shizuka turned to her. Psycho responded instantly. No, I don't know. Oh, okay. After recruiting 2 new peerage members, Lin could feel his strength rising again. The sensation of an impending breakthrough was growing stronger. Devil summoning was truly a fantastic ability. A single trip to another world. And he had already gained 2 followers, along with a perfect grinding zone. A huge profit. After Shizuka finished adjusting her clothes, Lin gave both of them a brief rundown on the situation regarding the peerage. After a moment of thought, Psycho nodded. So that's how it is. The peerage headquarters is actually in another world. She glanced at Lin, admiration flickering in her eyes. Master can even travel between worlds. As expected of Master. Eh? Another world? Shizuka's eyes sparkled with curiosity. So cool. Lin chuckled. Don't worry. I'll take you there when the time comes. Yay! Satisfied with that answer, Shizuka nodded like an excited puppy. Her eyes were filled with anticipation. But before that, we need to finish things here first. Psycho straightened her posture. Master, please give your orders. Don't be so serious, Psycho. Lin waved his hand dismissively, his tone relaxed. I plan to turn this world into a fixed training ground for the peerage. What do you think? Psycho was momentarily surprised but quickly gave it serious thought. Our world does seem very suitable. The zombies weren't strong, but there were a lot of them. Perfect for low-level peerage members to farm experience. Then it's decided. Lin clapped his hands, finalizing the plan. First, we need to establish a safe settlement for the peerage. It will serve as both a residence for you and Shizuka, and a base for peerage members coming here to train. Since there aren't many of us yet, it doesn't need to be large, just enough rooms, full facilities, and a comfortable environment. Psycho nodded, carefully memorizing Lin's requirements. As for the other peerage members, she had already heard about them. 2 more girls. That put her mind at ease. After all, if they were going to live together, she preferred it to be all girls. 4 men. 1 was enough. Ah. I have an idea. Shizuka suddenly raised her hand. Rika's house, it's perfect for what Master described. Psycho blinked. Rika's house. Yeah. Shizuka nodded. My friend is a police officer, and she's really strong. Lin made his decision instantly. Alright, let's head there first. Shizuka, you'll lead the way. Got it. Lin vaguely remembered that place. The house was nice, and if he recalled correctly, there were guns hidden inside. Though, realistically, he doubted he'd have much use for them. A devil's weapons should be demonic. With their destination set, the 3 immediately prepared to leave Fujimi Academy and head there. On the way, Psycho intended to cut down as many zombies as possible. To test her current strength and skills. And, more importantly, to satisfy her desires. Rika's house is a bit far. Should we drive there? Shizuka suggested. Then suddenly pulled a car key from her mouth. Didn't you take off all your clothes earlier? How do you still have things stored? Psycho couldn't help but complain. Hee. Shizuka just giggled mischievously. Psycho sighed, about to say something. But then, a voice echoed from the end of the corridor. Why did the stairs disappear? SHH. Keep your voice down, Takagi-san. Do you want to attract all the zombies? MMPH. A girl's voice. Psycho thought the voice sounded familiar. Master. Lin understood immediately. It's fine. Let's check it out. We need to leave anyway. The stairs Lin had destroyed earlier. There were people up there. When Psycho looked up, her eyes widened slightly. Miyamoto-san. Busujima-senpai. The 2 girls froze, momentarily stunned. Neither had expected to run into someone they knew in this situation. Lin also looked up. Sure enough. They were characters from the original protagonist group. But something was off. 2 people were missing. If he remembered correctly, shouldn't there be a male protagonist and a chubby guy with them? Had the timeline changed? Lin thought about it for a moment. And then realized. Ah. He knew what happened. Looking at the destruction around them, it wasn't hard to guess. A single lightning strike. Had he accidentally fried the protagonist and a supporting character? A precise strike? Not necessarily. More likely. The explosion had attracted way more zombies than in the original timeline, causing the group to be separated. If those two were still alive, they were probably struggling to survive against the horde. Not that it mattered to him. Lynn wasn't interested in men. Pink and white. From where he was standing, Lynn had a perfect view of Miyamoto Ari's and Takagi Saya's skirts. HNN. The two girls clearly noticed too. Realizing that a guy was looking up at them, they both hurriedly pulled their skirts down. Miyamoto Rei coughed awkwardly. Busujima-senpai, what exactly is going on? She looked around, confused. The ruins, the missing stairs. Her expression turned dazed. The stairs were gone. How were they supposed to get down? Hey! Rei suddenly jumped down from above. She landed right in Lynn's arms, like a homing pigeon returning to its nest. Thank you. Rei quickly stepped out of his embrace and bowed deeply. As she straightened up, she couldn't help but steal a glance at his arm, her ears burning slightly. Such strong arms! He caught her so effortlessly. Next was Saya. Unlike Rei, she was a bit more hesitant. She squeezed her eyes shut tightly before jumping down, afraid to look. Only when her feet touched the ground did she finally exhale in relief. I made it. After a brief discussion, they had agreed that jumping down was the best option. They had expected at least some minor injuries, but surprisingly, it turned out to be much easier than they thought. Almost, unreal. After thanking Lynn, the group quickly gathered together. But just as they cleared one hurdle, another one awaited them. Rei looked down. Dead bodies. All dead bodies. The collapsed stairs had caused the zombies to pile up, creating an eerie, grotesque mound. If they didn't leave soon, those things would eventually climb up. What should we do? Without thinking, Rei instinctively turned her gaze toward the only man in the group. Lynn, however, didn't even bother sparing the dead a glance. Psycho, I'll leave it to you. Huh? Rei and Saya blinked in surprise. Psycho-senpai? What was he asking her to do? Yes, master. Master. Rei and Saya's eyes widened in shock. Wait. Did she just call him master? Could this be some kind of kinky roleplay? They exchanged glances, their imaginations running wild. What exactly was the relationship between these two? On the other side, Psycho licked her lips, excitement flashing in her eyes. She had been suppressing her urge ever since she saw the pile of zombies. But since Lynn hadn't said anything, she endured it. Now, however, she finally had permission. Perfect. Time to test the power her master had given her. Clang. The blade left its sheath. The setting sun glinted off the polished steel, painting it in a dazzling golden hue. The moment she gripped it, something within her clicked. Pure instinct. She swung downward. Tear. The sharp sound of air being sliced rang in their ears. A white streak of light shot toward the zombies. Puff. In an instant, the piled-up bodies were cleanly severed. Blood erupted from the fresh wounds. If one looked closely, they would see the cuts were impossibly smooth. Phew. Seeing the blood spurting out, Psycho's breathing grew heavier. However, Lynn frowned slightly. Psycho, who had been paying close attention to him, immediately restrained herself and looked at him cautiously. Next time, aim for the head. Otherwise, it's inefficient. That was the problem with zombies. Unless you destroyed the head, they wouldn't stay down. The strike just now was visually impressive, but because the heads were still intact, the corpses remained active. Understood, master. Psycho breathed a sigh of relief. Good. He didn't hate it. That brief moment of slaughter had thrilled her, nearly exposing more of her true nature. Lynn's frown had scared her, she thought she had displeased him. She took a deep breath and steadied herself. This time, she aimed precisely for the heads, ensuring each strike was a proper execution. Meanwhile, Rei and Saya watched in stunned silence. Sword beam. Psycho-senpai just unleashed a sword beam. Was this still Japan? The two girls exchanged another glance, both seeing the disbelief in each other's eyes. Could it be, that amidst this crisis, humans were evolving? Wow! Psycho-chan, you're amazing! Shizuka's voice broke the silence. Rei and Saya snapped their heads toward her. Was she seriously not shocked at all? That was a sword beam. A supernatural ability. Completely beyond human limits. Rei and Saya were screaming internally, overflowing with questions. They wanted to ask Psycho about it. But when they saw her growing smile take on an unsettling edge, they swallowed their words. Scary. 10 minutes later. Psycho, slightly out of breath, sheathed her sword. The area below now resembled a meat grinder. How does it feel? Lynn asked. Splendid. Psycho's voice held an unmistakable excitement. Lynn observed her state. 10 minutes of non-stop slashing, yet she was only slightly winded. This confirmed one thing: her energy consumption was low. However, Psycho had yet to realize that she didn't need the sword at all to execute those slashes. Whether with a flick of her hand or a simple kick. As long as she willed it, she could unleash sword energy from any part of her body. After all, she was the Blade Devil. Lynn didn't tell her just yet. Instead, he simply encouraged her. Well done. Psycho instantly froze. And then, she clamped her thighs together. It's coming out. HMMMN. Since the bodies are dealt with, let's move. Lynn turned away, ignoring the pile of corpses and blood-soaked floor below. Honestly, the only reason he had them fight was for Psycho to gain experience. Otherwise, they could have just jumped out the window from the start. Crash. With a casual tap from his finger, the third-floor window shattered. Lynn glanced at Rei and Saya, who were still trembling from Psycho's previous display. Ignoring their hesitation, he grabbed each of them by the waist like they were nothing more than sacks of potatoes. Wait! Before they could protest, Lynn jumped. Chapter 28, Fujimai Academy. Lynn and his group walked leisurely toward the parking lot. Whenever zombies appeared along the way, Psycho swiftly beheaded them before they could get within 3 meters of Lynn. Rei and Saya followed behind like frightened quails, their necks shrunk as they cast wary glances at Psycho, then at Shizuka, before finally settling on Lynn. It was obvious now, both Psycho and Shizuka were no longer ordinary humans. Especially Psycho, who was terrifyingly strong. And yet, both of them willingly followed that man's lead. Just what was he? No one would tell them. Even now, they didn't even know his name. And they didn't dare to ask. Parking lot. Ah! Found it! Shizuka waved at Lynn, standing next to a yellow-green school bus. Let's go. The group boarded the bus. The area was eerily quiet, as Psycho had already cleared out the zombies nearby. Shizuka sat in the driver's seat, fidgeting with the keys, momentarily confused. Just then, footsteps sounded from outside. Quick! There's a bus here. The vehicle suddenly rocked as several people climbed aboard. The first to step in was a man in a purple suit. It was him. Rei's expression darkened with disgust. Then, she spotted Komuro Takashi behind him and her eyes widened. How could Takashi be with this scumbag? So, he wasn't a good person either. She recalled how Takashi had pestered her years ago, and thankfully, she had ignored him. Her gaze turned cold as she shut her eyes in irritation. She despised Shido Koichi. But this school bus already had an owner. Because of her connection with Psycho, she and Saya had been allowed to board this safe, reliable vehicle. She wasn't about to jeopardize that by causing unnecessary trouble. However, she did wonder. Had Shido somehow evolved as well? Shido glanced around and found only a handful of students on the bus. The only authority figure was a female teacher. Instantly, he felt emboldened. Ahem. Clearing his throat, he prepared to deliver one of his usual manipulative speeches to seize control of the bus. But before he could... Psycho. Yes, master. In an instant, Psycho vanished from her seat and reappeared in front of Shido. His pupils shrank in shock. Before he could react, a sharp pain struck his abdomen. And he was sent flying off the bus. Rei's eyes lit up with joy, and a weight lifted from her chest. Good. Shido was still just an ordinary human. Lynn remained indifferent. He had already sensed Shido's group approaching. Thanks to his earlier lightning strike, the butterfly effect had taken hold. Far more zombies than in the original timeline had swarmed Fujimai Academy, yet this cockroach had still managed to survive. As expected, scum like him always clung to life. But then... Lynn's gaze shifted to Komuro Takashi. Ah! So that's how he made it. He was leeching off the protagonist's luck. His... Shido clutched his stomach, taking a sharp breath as he looked up at Psycho in disbelief. Then, he straightened himself up and scowled. I am a teacher at Fujimai Academy. You dare attack a teacher? This is outright defiance of authority. Takashi's expression hardened. Senpai, please apologize to Shido-sensei. He was furious. Shido had gathered so many people under his leadership during this apocalypse, Takashi respected him for that. As long as they followed Shido, he believed they would make it through this crisis. If the people on this bus had simply handed over control, they too could have joined the group and survived together. Instead, they had attacked Sensei Shido for no reason. Takashi clenched his fists. And to make things worse, his first love, Rei, was sitting right there on this bus. If this incident caused him to lose the chance to be with her, then he wouldn't accept it. But before he could act, Psycho shot him a cold glance. Then, she ignored him and turned back to Shido. Standing over him, she unsheathed her blade. Clang! Shido froze. A single bead of cold sweat dripped down his forehead. I didn't kill you on the bus because I didn't want your filthy blood staining it. Wait. His eyes widened in terror. The next second, a crimson line formed across his neck. Bang. His head hit the pavement, his lifeless eyes staring blankly ahead. Silence. The students who had followed Shido moments ago now stood in stunned confusion. Takashi was frozen. Shido, sensei. Dead? You. Overcome with rage, he lunged forward, reaching for Saiko's collar. But before he could even touch her. Slash. His arm was severed. It hit the ground with a wet slap. Ah! Blood sprayed everywhere as Takashi screamed. Saiko's expression remained unchanged. Saiko raised her blade once more. Slash. Takashi, dead. Lynn tapped his chin in thought. It seemed, something about the relationship between Rei and Takashi was different in this world. Meanwhile, Saiko calmly wiped the blood from her sword before scanning the others. Anyone else want to step forward? No one answered. Saiko sheathed her blade. With that, she closed the bus door and took her seat. The school bus started, leaving the academy behind. No one dared to cause trouble again. The lesson had been effective. Saiko felt nothing about killing two humans. No matter what someone's identity was, they needed to know their place. That was one of her principles. Now that she was her master's sword, it was only natural to eliminate annoying pests for him. Those people had bad intentions. Saiko had merely shown mercy by only killing two. On the bus, Rei stole a glance at Lynn. Shido's death had completely relieved the weight in her chest. She felt grateful to Saiko. But she also understood. Everything Saiko did was because of this man. Her gaze lingered on Lynn's handsome face. Her heart pounded faster. A man worth relying on. Saya sat beside her, barely daring to breathe. All her past arrogance and pride were gone. Meanwhile, Saiko patted her thighs and smiled sweetly at Lynn. Master, do you need a lap pillow? Her tone was gentle, completely different from before. Lynn didn't hesitate, he lay down immediately. His head sank into softness. Saiko's eyes softened as she gently massaged his head. Lynn, enjoying her service, pulled out his phone. There was no signal between worlds, but thanks to demonic summoning, he could still connect. A cross-world chat system. Unfortunately, he hadn't brought extra phones. Next time, he'd prepare in advance so Saiko and the others could join the family group. For now, he had mentioned Utah. Sigma Man at Kazumajayaka Utah, I won't be back tonight. Kazumajayaka Utah? Lynn's Peerage Harem group chat. Sigma Man, picture. Lynn casually snapped a few photos of the scenery outside the school bus window and sent them to the group. Desolate streets, overturned vehicles, bloodstains everywhere, and the grotesque figures of zombies rushing toward the school bus, drawn by the noise. Main world. Utah clicked on the pictures, thinking they looked like stills from a zombie movie. A new zombie flick? Was Lynn inviting her to go to the movies? She entertained the thought for a moment but quickly dismissed it. Sigma Man, currently in another world. Just recruited 2 new peerage members. Sigma Man, knee pillow, massage.jpg. Kazumajayaka Utah. Utah ignored the first message entirely and clicked on the last image instead. A formidable rival. This woman was a serious threat. Gripping her phone tightly, Utah glared at the picture of Lynn resting on a pair of soft, plump thighs. He'd only been gone for an afternoon, and now he had 2 new followers. And one of them was already letting him use her thighs as a pillow. Kazumajayaka Utah, so this is why you're not coming back tonight? She bit her lip lightly. If he wasn't coming back, was he planning to spend the night with her? The thought made her chest tighten. Of course, she'd known from the very beginning. From the moment she became part of his peerage, she had understood. Lynn had never concealed his intentions. He was destined to be a man with a harem. Even the group chat name was blatantly clear about that. And honestly, wasn't that what made him so attractive? She had no illusions about it. A man like Lynn was meant to be admired and pursued by women. Hadn't she done the same? It had only been a few days since she joined, and already, she wanted to be closer to him. Closer. Had she ever been like this before? But still. She came first. At the very least, the first time should have been hers. Determined, Utah took a picture of her own legs, clad in sleek black stockings, and sent it to the group. Kazumajayaka Utah, blackstockings.jpg. Kazumajayaka Utah, does it look good? Sigma Man, thumbs up. Kazumajayaka Utah, come back tonight, and you can use them however you like. A knee pillow? She could do that too. Yatsuya household. Maiko, who had been quietly lurking in the chat, peeked at her screen. Utah-senpai, how bold. Ding dong. Another message notification. She glanced over hurriedly. Sigma Man, that's a shame. I need to establish a temporary peerage base in this world tonight. Once it's set up, you'll be able to come here to level up. Maiko gasped softly. Master Lin is incredible. He could resist such temptation. Dash. Meanwhile, Yuta stared at her phone in shock. Rejected? He rejected her. For a brief moment, she felt a little defeated. Had she lost her charm? But then, she straightened up, her expression resolute. Lin is doing this for the peerage's development. That's right. Yes, he was their master, yet he personally traveled across worlds just to secure a leveling area for them. It must be exhausting crossing worlds like that, right? Realization struck her. That's why he needed to rest on that woman's lap. As for the other details about this other world, she had completely forgotten them by now. High School of the Dead World. Lin put down his phone, content to enjoy Psycho's soothing massage. His chat in the group had two purposes. First, to confirm that his connection with Yuta and the others in the main world remained stable. Second, to inform Yuta that he wouldn't be returning tonight so she wouldn't worry. As for her black stockings? Well, she belonged to him anyway. He could play with her legs whenever he wanted. Dash. Suddenly, the school bus jerked to a stop. The abrupt braking caused everyone inside to lurch forward. Lin, still resting on Psycho's lap, was treated to a shaking visual feast. What happened? Saya's voice wavered in panic. Shizuka, looking troubled, replied, the road ahead is blocked. Everyone turned their eyes forward. The road was clogged with abandoned vehicles. It seemed that when the zombie outbreak first occurred, this place had suffered a massive traffic jam. With no clear route forward, the bus was now stuck. Psycho sighed. Looks like we'll have to walk the rest of the way. Her sword could easily cut down obstacles, but a pileup of cars was a different story. Even with their current strength as low-class devils, they could probably move the vehicles. But it would take too long. No one objected to the idea of walking, but then Lin spoke. It's fine. Just drive through it. Hi. Rei and Saya, who had just unbuckled their seat belts, froze. Drive through? They turned to him in bewilderment. Did he not see how many cars were piled up ahead? But Psycho had no hesitation. If her master said to rush through, then they would rush through. Yahoo! Shizuka, unexpectedly, was excited. Bumper cars, engage! The school bus engine roared. Wait! Rei tried to protest, but the bus took off like a rocket. Crazy! This is insane! Rei and Saya clutched their seats, eyes squeezed shut as they instinctively shielded their faces. Snap! Lin snapped his fingers. A black magic circle formed, completely enveloping the school bus. A semicircular black barrier appeared, covering the vehicle entirely. Boom! The school bus smashed into the first car, making a deafening crash. But under the protection of the barrier, the bus remained completely unharmed. Inside, there wasn't even the slightest shake from the impact. After a while, Rei hesitantly opened her eyes. And her jaw dropped. The school bus was plowing through the traffic jam like a tank, sending vehicles flying left and right. This. She was stunned speechless. A moment later, she sighed in admiration. Supernatural power is so unfair. Dash. After this little detour, the school bus continued onward. By the time night had fully set in, they finally arrived at Minami Rika's house. Lin took a quick glance around. A fairly spacious house, decent structure. He nodded in satisfaction. Not bad. This should be enough for the peerage to use for now. After confirming with his magic that the house was zombie-free, he turned to Shizuka. Take them inside and start cleaning up. Psycho and I will handle the zombies outside. Yes, Master, X2. Chapter 30, Deeper Feel. Bang. Under the moonlit street. Psycho exhaled heavily as she decapitated the last zombie in the area. Her breathing gradually steadied as she rubbed her thighs, her face flushed. My body feels sticky. She muttered vaguely. Lin leaned against a nearby wall, quietly watching Psycho's solo performance of carnage. What a beautiful feast of slaughter, he remarked, clapping his hands in approval. Psycho lowered her head slightly, her voice carrying a hint of self-reproach. I'm sorry. Master had to witness such an unsightly side of me. It's fine, Lin replied casually. I like the way you looked just now. She was born for battle. A perfect warrior, destined to hunt down monsters and grow stronger. And with the skill yearning for slaughter, Psycho's level would only rise faster. Not only that, her potential far exceeded most of his peerage. A rare talent. Hearing Lin's words, Psycho's eyes grew misty. The lingering weight in her heart vanished completely. Her master liked her true self. The sheer excitement caused her body to tense involuntarily, nearly letting out an uncontrolled sound. Let's go, Lin said. It's time to update your status. He was quite curious to see how much she had improved in a single night. Yes. Psycho's voice trembled slightly as she forced her body to follow him. Dash. Minami Rika's house. Lynn and Psycho stepped into the living room. In the kitchen, Rei and Saya were busy counting ingredients and preparing dinner. They understood their roles well. When it came to combat, they couldn't compare to Lynn and the other two, who had supernatural abilities. So they focused on logistics. At the very least, they needed to contribute to the group. If they simply freeloaded, taking protection for granted, they would be abandoned sooner or later. And right now, Lynn's group was the safest place in the world. They couldn't afford to lose it. Psycho took a glance at them and gave a satisfied nod. Even though she had become a devil, she wasn't devoid of emotions. She still cared about Rei, her former classmate. At least now, Rei was proving herself useful. That was good. If Lynn ever decided to recruit them, perhaps they could become like her, devils with extraordinary power. If not, at the very least, they could keep Master company. Yes, that would work too. Psycho had already made plans for Rei and Saya's future in her mind. Dash. Second floor. Finding a clean room, Psycho skillfully removed her uniform, leaving only her inner garments. Sorry, Master, she murmured. I sweated a lot earlier. It might smell a little off. Though sweat might not be the only scent lingering on her body. It's fine. This won't take long. Psycho let out a quiet breath of relief. As long as Master didn't mind. Lying down on the bed, she unfastened the back of her top, exposing her smooth, bare back. Lynn conjured a small drop of his magic-infused blood and let it fall onto her skin. A ripple spread out, her status appeared. Psycho Busujima. Rank, low-class devil. Race, devil. Master, Lynn Valifor. Strength, I0 rightward arrow E435. Agility, I0 rightward arrow G289. Endurance, I0 rightward arrow F306. Magic, I0 rightward arrow E411. Innate skills. Yearning for killing, omitted. Blade Devil, omitted. Her growth rate was insane. In just half a day, she had completely surpassed Yuta, who had joined the peerage first. At this rate, Psycho could break past S rank and reach SS, or even SSS, within a month. Psycho, I think you'll be the first in the peerage to evolve, Lynn noted as he recorded her status. Really? Psycho's eyes widened in surprise. She hurriedly grabbed her updated status sheet, completely forgetting to fix her clothes. The highest stat already reached E. Even her body could feel the improvement. This is just from today's gains, Lynn explained. You've already surpassed most people. Since she had no reference point, he gave her a comparison. Yuta's first update only increased her stats by a little over 100 points. Understanding finally dawned on Psycho. Her progress was terrifying. A quick calculation told her that her total stat gain was around 1,500 points. That was 10 times more than Yuta's. Psycho's eyes flickered as she stared at her skill, yearning for killing. So this was the reason. She had always tried to suppress her true nature. But now, after becoming part of Master's peerage, it had become her greatest strength. She could finally let herself go. All of this was because of Master. Her gaze filled with determination. She grasped Lynn's hand firmly, looking straight into his eyes. Master, I will become the sharpest blade in your hand. She guided his palm, leading it across her bare shoulders and down to her chest. Do you feel my resolve? Lynn definitely felt it. Psycho's breath hitched, her face flushed as she met his gaze. I think I need to feel it more deeply, Lynn said, his expression serious. Psycho's heartbeat quickened. She didn't resist in the slightest. From the moment she became part of his peerage, she belonged to him. Psycho is all sweaty, she whispered, her voice sultry. Please allow me to bathe you first, Master. Outside the door, Rei's hand froze mid-air just as she was about to knock. She had come to call them downstairs for dinner, but instead, she ended up witnessing something extraordinary. Her face instantly flushed pink. She wanted to pretend she hadn't seen anything and leave quietly, but her legs felt as if they had been nailed to the ground, refusing to move. As time passed, Rei's breathing became noticeably erratic. After what felt like an eternity, she finally managed to compose herself, quickly tidied up her appearance, and hurried away. Dash. Downstairs. Saya narrowed her eyes as she watched Rei return, her face still flushed. You sure took your time. What were you doing? She asked suspiciously. And nothing. Rei's gaze darted away as she quickly changed the subject. You must be hungry. Let's eat first. What about them? Saya frowned slightly, feeling that eating without the others didn't seem right. Well. Sensei fell asleep in the bath again. And what about Psycho and Lynn? They had learned Lynn's name from Shizuka earlier. They are discussing sword moves, Rei answered awkwardly. They got really into it, so they probably won't be coming down anytime soon. Is that so? Saya still felt like something was off. The next morning. As dawn broke, the first ray of sunlight in the world of the dead pierced through the curtains. Lin opened his eyes and looked at the woman in his arms. He had already seen Psycho's side that craved the thrill of battle, yet now, in this quiet moment, her sleeping face exuded an entirely different charm. No matter how much she relished the battlefield, at the end of the day, she was still a woman. Master. As if sensing his gaze, Psycho murmured softly in her sleep. Lin gently stroked her long, silky hair but didn't rush to get up. Reaching for his phone, he opened line. Every half hour last night, Kashomajayaka Utah had mentioned him in the group chat. But at that time, he had been too busy to pay attention. Sigma man at Kashomajayaka Utah, please ask Natsuki-chan for a leave of absence for me. On the other end, Utah, who had been anxiously waiting for Lin's reply all night and hadn't slept well, felt her heart turn cold. Last night had been completely silent, as if her messages had vanished into the void. And now, first thing in the morning, he was asking her to request leave for him? The meaning was obvious. Utah's grip on her phone tightened, her knuckles turning white. A heavy suffocating feeling settled in her chest. Huff. She took several deep breaths to calm herself. Then, with sharp, deliberate keystrokes, she fired back a reply. Kashomajayaka Utah? Lin chuckled but ignored her. Main world. Utah arrived at school with dark circles under her eyes, seething with frustration. The entire way there, she muttered under her breath. Stealing cat, shameless woman. I was the first. Teacher's office, Shuchin Academy. That's the situation, Ms. Minamiya. Got it, Natsuki Minamiya replied without questioning further, approving the leave request immediately. Leaving the office, Utah slumped against the wall. Spineless. She muttered, cursing herself. Then, as if possessed by a sudden determination, she pulled out her phone and opened a shopping app. Search, bunny girl costume. War. This is a woman's war. After selecting one that made her blush just looking at it, Utah placed the order without hesitation. Her eyes burned with fierce resolve. You may have rolled first. But I'll let you have that head start this time. Gritting her teeth, she whispered the words of a sore loser, her voice trembling ever so slightly. Second. At the very least, she would be second. Just the two of you here. Shizuka came downstairs, wearing only an oversized shirt while yawning. Rei and Saya, who were sitting on the sofa, froze the moment they saw her appearance. Saya's face turned bright red, and she stammered, SS-sensei, CC clothes. Shizuka tilted her head in confusion before glancing down at herself. Realization dawned. Tapping her forehead in distress, she sighed. I forgot. The only one that fits me is the one I wore yesterday. Then, as if remembering something, she asked, by the way, where are Psycho and Master? Hearing how naturally Shizuka referred to Lin as Master, Rei's eyelids twitched. Psycho too. But considering Psycho and Lin's relationship, maybe it was to be expected. After all, last night. Rei's cheeks flushed red again at the memory. She quickly cleared her throat and answered, they probably haven't gotten up yet. Last night. They were up really late. Her voice grew quieter toward the end. Shizuka, completely oblivious to their awkwardness, happily skipped toward Psycho's room. Wait. Rei opened her mouth, wanting to stop her. Wouldn't it be better not to disturb them right now? Swish. But before she could say anything, Shizuka had already pulled open the door. Psycho, the sun's already shining on your... Her words abruptly stopped. She blinked, staring at the scene in front of her. Psycho, looking particularly satisfied, turned her head toward Shizuka. The corners of her lips curled into a soft smile. Shizuka's cheeks puffed up like an angry pufferfish. Psycho, bad. You actually did it without me. Psycho wiped the corner of her mouth and smiled. Sensei, you came at the right time. Then, she extended an invitation. To a team match. Master, you don't mind Sensei joining us, right? What? Lin met Psycho's serious gaze and quickly realized she wasn't joking. Why not? The more, the merrier, he replied with a cheeky grin. Shizuka dropped onto the bed, swinging her wide hips as she positioned her butt right beside Lin. Thank you, Master, Shizuka chirped as her head dipped forward, her tongue flicking over his nipple. Psycho caught his dick, clasped down his rod, parted her succulent lips, and slid him into her mouth. Shizuka's tongue continued to move, flicking his nipple, sucking him, forcing his length to grow harder and harder. A deep groan edged out of his throat. Swiftly, his right hand grabbed Psycho's head between his legs and his other arm swept around Shizuka's body, welcoming her warmth through her body. Shizuka responded in kind, sweeping her hand across his chest, finding his free nipple between her thumb and forefinger. Lynn groaned, and his dick jerked once more. Psycho moaned, feeling him swell in her mouth. Up and down, her shiny purple-haired head bobbed, stroking the base of his cock with her hands, stimulating his tip with slippery sucks. Slowly, despite the cool morning breeze, the temperature of the room began to rise. In a symphony of slurp-slurp noises, the trio locked themselves in together in a crescendo of pure want. Shizuka slowly pushed Lynn back, lowering his back to the bed. Gladly, he surrendered to her beguiling. The sound of Psycho's cough suddenly ruptured the silence. The cough came again, and he stole a quick glance downwards. Psycho was simply choking on his massive cock. Damn, she's really going to pass out. He tugged on Shizuka, giving her a wordless signal with his eyes, glancing downwards. She immediately picked on. Promptly, she pulled away from his chest, got up, and pulled her dress over her head. Her massive breasts jiggled out of her dress as she swung it over her head. Full, round, and perky, they rested on her chest, jiggling with her every movement. As she dropped low, Lynn was once again reminded of the delicate curves of her thighs. Below her thin waist, each side of her birthing hips spilled out in a rich curve. She quietly turned around for a second, flaunting her massive ass. And Lynn swallowed, wishing he could reach for an ass grab. But Shizuka had other plans. Gently, she knelt behind Psycho. Leaning forward, she reached around, found Lynn's balls, and slowly, she began to massage quietly. His heavy scrotum cradled on her small fingers, bouncing along the skin of her palms. Lynn gasped. Quietly, not wanting to upstage her, Shizuka gently pulled Psycho away from his cock. Her mouth could no longer take it. As her purple hair fell away, Lynn's dick was revealed in all its majesty. Under the rays of the filtering sun, it gleamed, shining from Psycho's mouth's fluids. Its length was staggering, spanning the length of wrist to elbow ratio. In thickness, it was as thick as a maiden's calf. Shock poured from Psycho's eyes as she backed off. When did that happen? She gawked in surprise. Her eyes widening, shirking away in shyness, but it wasn't like that, she stammered. Psycho, still reeling in shock, watched as Shizuka opened her mouth, slid out her tongue, and licked his cock from top to bottom, stroking him in wet thrusts, forcing his urethra to bulge out. Shizuka felt him thicken on her tongue, and moaned as well. She spilled her fluids all over his gleaming length, gifting him generous quantities of each drip. Then, Psycho watched as Shizuka's head arched forward, swallowing his entire length. Lynn's muscled body hardened. Yeah, he groaned. A sharp pang of jealousy tore through Psycho's heart. Watching them both, it felt like they were made for each other. She eyed Shizuka's massive breasts, her wide hips, her bulging ass, and the unnatural width of her mouth. Trying to mask her jealousy, she whispered hoarsely. Make room, sensei, I want to suck master too. Shizuka then proceeded to shock Psycho. In one smooth movement, she sprang up to her feet, climbed into bed, and swung her voluptuous body on top of Lynn, placing them in a 69 position. Her face, breasts, and front, faced Lynn cock, while her massive butt literally faced his head. With his torso buried beneath her twin massive thighs, she tied her blonde hair in a neat bun. And before she leaned forward, she shared a look with Psycho. Psycho immediately got the message. So, Shizuka fell forward, collapsing her mouth on his cock, while Psycho dropped to her knees between his legs, taking his balls in her mouth. Together, they sucked and sucked. In soft clucking noises, Psycho's soft tongue cradled his balls. She flattened her tongue, curled it upwards, picked up his scrotum, and fucked him with her tongue. She switched between each ball, letting her moist lips cushion the skin, while her wet tongue massaged him gently. Lynn, out of breath, fought to keep his cum in. Hot, raw, tingling sensations shot up his urethra, contracting and retracting. Fuck, I'm gonna come. Both of them, in their soft voices, lowered their mouths onto his organ. With their delicate milky bodies, they pressed up against him, filling the air with their slippery moans. I'm coming. Lynn announced briskly. Out of his control, the first few drops of pre-cum spilled out. In uncontrollable spurts, the white liquid trickled out. Eagerly, the Shizuka's instincts took over. The hot vibrations of his rod forced out his juice. Expertly, she arrested his cock with her tongue, sucking ferociously on the tip. Stroking his base with her hands, she kept thrusting aggressively up and down, squeezing on his dripping cock. Psycho felt the energy of his orgasm. It choked her. It made her feel powerful. It made her hornier. Her tongue under his balls, circling it in planetary orbits, squeezing it between the inner walls of her mouth. Tugging softly, as if forcing it to make more semen. She kept slurping, contracting her cheeks. Slurp. 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 The wet echoes filtered rose from their slippery mouths, filling the room with erotically charged notes. At calculated angles, with alternating grips, Shizuka's head slipped up and down, tightening her jaw. Gulping at the back of her throat, she took a deeper plunge and the hot fluid burst right through. Hhhhnn. A savage moan, hungry and eager, erupted from her gut. From collarbone to bouncing breasts, right down her back, tinged in expectation, Shizuka's whole body shook. Lynn wasn't left out. On the bed, his back arched forward, attempting to rise. But her upside-down naked butt kept him pinned him. So, with one woman laying on top of him, and with another coiled between the base of his feet, both panting, both naked, Lynn fast-breathing chest rumbled under the weight of Shizuka's massive ass. Under the slippery enclave of her dripping mouth, his veined penis gorged and gorged. Go, faster he commanded. Wet echoes, splashed in the air. Both their mouths, in frenzied sucking motions, tugged Lynn to completion. Their heads worked steadily, bobbing back and forth, up and down. Unable to restrain it any longer, thick cream blasted right out of his dick out in rich bursts. Shizuka's tongue uncoiled like a snake, lapping it up completely. It's been so long, she thought, I'm taking it all. At some point, her head stopped moving. And her jaws went to work. Straddling his chest between her thick fleshy thighs, her tongue slammed into his pulsating cock. In a toothless grind, her cheeks and throat squeezed out his semen in frantic sucks. Psycho, at the base of the bed, felt the strain on his balls and extended her tongue. The wet sloshing echoed into the air. Lynn's fingers dug into her buttocks. His head arched backwards. And both his lips quivered. He couldn't control his throbbing penis. It filled her throat, extended down her esophagus, nearing the base of her stomach, gushing and sending flashing electric tingles through the length of his groin. Phenomenal. Lynn thought to himself, absolutely phenomenal. He let his head fall back, crashing softly into the white hospital sheets. The slit of his eyes began to widen. His beating heart kept pounding. His fingers eased up, ready to surrender his orgasm to Shizuka. Light suddenly flashed in his eyes. Wait, he thought, I can't leave Psycho out of this. Psycho, he growled, reaching for her head, come here. Gratitude bloomed on her face. Eager-eyed, and still on her knees, she lifted her head up. Open your mouth. She did. There, like this. His other hand separated her jaw, while his left hand rested on her head. With his face red and puffy, he held his spewing dick at the base, angling it down to her open mouth. Psycho moaned as the first drops slammed into the back of her throat. Jealousy flashed in Shizuka's eyes. Her mouth's too small, master, she announced quietly, here, let me help you. Before he could react, she slipped behind him and reached around for his cock. As her massive breasts crushed against his muscled back, she began to tug him with both hands. Lynn growled, pouring his seed into Psycho's tiny mouth. Together, in the sun-filled room, all three of them growled to ecstasy. The brilliant whiteness of the room illuminated their youthful bodies. Raw energy, like a sea of lightning, charged the air. Hhhhhhhh. Psycho moaned, mumbling nonsense, grappling with his throbbing dick. Lynn, with his head arched backwards, hair fallen backwards, and eyes closed, felt the rippling surge of hot semen. He had never felt it like this before. Shizuka, behind him, tugged on his cock, feeding him her warm body from behind, occasionally twisting his nipples, forcing his hardening cock to jerk and jerk. Suddenly, Psycho coughed. Shizuka's eyes flared. Lynn growled. Swallow it. He commanded, digging his hands into her purple hair. Don't be scared, you can swallow it. Master. Shizuka whispered directly into his ears. Psycho looks like she's going to waste it. Let me. Open your mouth, he said to Psycho, ignoring Shizuka. Yeah, just go with it. That's it. Now swallow. Swallow. Barely half of his cock had entered her mouth. But he didn't mind. He could feel his orgasm waning. But, Shizuka's hands kept stroking the lower half, artfully squeezing his dick to completion. Ah, yes, Lynn mouthed quietly. A gust of cold breeze swept through the parted glass windows. Fuck. Lynn sputtered, feeling the last strain of his orgasm stretch his cock wider. Psycho's soft lips encircled his tip, kissing it in wet sucks. They must have seemed like an odd trio. Lynn, with his pants down, was seated at the edge of the bed, eyes half closed, and massive cock dangling out. Psycho, naked as daylight, was crouched between his legs, on the ground, on her knees, with half of his cock in her mouth, and her hair sprayed across her shoulders. And finally, Shizuka, with her thick voluptuous body, was on her knees behind him, straddling his cock from behind, pressing her full round breasts against his back, letting him feel her hard pink nipples. Shit, Lynn exhaled. That was insane. That day. The midday sun was particularly dazzling. Lynn walked down from the second floor, feeling refreshed. The living room on the first floor. When Rei and Saya saw Lynn, their expressions became rather strange. Their faces were flushed, and they avoided looking at him directly. 3 people. For such a long time. It was too chaotic. By the time it was almost 3 in the afternoon, Lynn had returned to the main world and used the world anchor left by the devil's summoning to establish a passage to the high school of the dead world within the Supernatural Investigation Club. Of course, this passage could only be activated with Lynn's consent. Under normal circumstances, it appeared to be nothing more than a normal door. Even if outsiders saw it, they wouldn't find anything unusual. Even if someone walked through it, they would only emerge on the other side of the door, without actually crossing into another world. After setting things up, Lynn at Utah and Maiko in the chat group, instructing them to gather at the Supernatural Investigation Club after school. Then, he used teleportation magic to head to the shopping district. He bought 2 mobile phones and registered 2 additional numbers. These were for Saiko and Shizuka. Once they joined the peerage chat group, it would be easier to keep in touch. By the time Lynn returned to the Supernatural Investigation Club, Utah and Maiko had already arrived. Utah gave him a resentful look and said in a quiet voice, "You're finally willing to come back." Lynn rubbed his chin and replied, "Actually, I still have to stay in that world tonight." Utah's expression froze. She opened her mouth but failed to speak. Then, all the energy seemed to drain from her, and she collapsed onto the couch like a deflated balloon. "Utah-senpai, stay strong." Maiko hurriedly shook Utah, worried that she might pass out from shock. Lynn glanced at Maiko and said, "By the way, you should probably tell your mom that you'll be away for a while too." "Hi." Maiko stiffened, standing frozen in place. Hearing this, Utah's lifeless expression immediately regained color, as if she had been revived with full HP. "What? So they also had to live in that world? As long as they weren't too far from Lynn, everything would be fine." Utah clenched her fists quietly, her eyes blazing with determination. She couldn't afford to let anyone take advantage of Lynn. Lynn had planned a training camp for them. At 3 p.m., they would depart from the Supernatural Investigation Club and head to the world of High School of the Dead. Then, they would slaughter their way forward. When they got tired of fighting at night, they could rest and return to school in the morning for classes. A perfect schedule. Lynn was primarily concerned that they might fall behind Saiko, which could create an imbalance. Maiko was fine, but Utah was particularly stubborn. And some gaps simply couldn't be bridged with sheer determination alone. But at the very least, in these early stages, before Utah fully recognized her own limits, she couldn't afford to fall too far behind. Besides, with Shizuka's incredible support abilities, it would be easy for his peerage to level up. Earlier, he tested out the juicing mode with Shizuka, and Lynn had personally experienced its effectiveness. Especially the absurdly high milk output. Lynn had tasted half of it at the time, and the effects were outstanding. Not to mention, it was sweet and delicious. He had saved the remaining half to use as a stamina recovery item whenever Utah and Maiko ran low on energy during battles. That way, their stamina would always be fully replenished. Of course, this kind of thing couldn't be used too often. While the body wouldn't feel tired, the mind would still experience fatigue. Once a day was more than enough. After Maiko explained to her mother that she'd be staying at a friend's house for a few days, Lynn led them to the portal marked as Zombie World. Utah and Maiko curiously examined the dimensional gate. Previously, when they were chatting in the group, Lynn had mentioned traveling to another world, but since they hadn't experienced it themselves, it never felt real. Especially Utah, who had been too busy thinking about how to get into Lynn's pants at the time to care about his interdimensional travels. But now that they were actually about to cross into another world, they felt nervous and excited. An entirely different world. Although, judging from the pictures Lynn had posted before, it didn't seem like an ideal world. But still, this was their first time traveling between worlds. "Are you ready?" Lynn asked. Utah and Maiko took deep breaths, their expressions becoming serious. "Ready. ×2. Buzz." A brilliant white light flashed across the Supernatural Investigation Club. And then, nothing remained. Zombie World, Minami Rika's house. The temporary base for Lynn's peerage. A white light flashed, and Lynn, along with the others, suddenly appeared in the living room. Rei and Saya, who had been waiting for some time, exchanged glances, their eyes filled with shock. Earlier, when Lynn had suddenly vanished, they had already been astonished. Now that he had reappeared, bringing 2 new people with him, they were even more stunned. At that moment, their minds raced with countless thoughts. Lynn could actually travel between worlds. Did this mean that Lynn wasn't originally from their world? Or even more shocking, was all the supernatural power they had seen so far actually brought by Lynn? After all, other than Lynn, Saiko, and Shizuka, no one else in this world possessed supernatural abilities. At that moment, they felt as if they had uncovered the truth. No wonder Saiko and Shizuka respected Lynn so much. No wonder they called him master. It all made sense now. Their gazes slowly shifted toward Lynn. Then, another realization struck them. When they had first met at Fujimai Academy, Lynn hadn't been wearing the school uniform. This further reinforced their speculation. If Psycho and Shizuka had gained their supernatural powers through Lynn, then did that mean they also had a chance? Their eyes burned with determination. They desperately wanted to join Lynn's peerage. As the white light faded, Yuta and Maiko looked around curiously. It doesn't seem that special. Yuta murmured. Welcome to the temporary base of our peerage in the zombie world. Lynn declared. He had personally named this world Zombie World as its code name. Psycho had found it quite fitting. After all, this world was overrun with zombies. Hearing this, Yuta's gaze immediately fell upon Psycho. That sneaky cat scent. She subtly examined the four girls present, and her eyelids twitched. The girls in this world eat too well, don't they? What was with this ridiculous figure that was comparable to Rias and Akeno? Yuta, once again, felt utterly defeated by reality. He. The world is so unfair. Yuta fell into deep self-doubt. Hello, I'm Yatsuya Maiko, but just call me Maiko. I've only recently joined the peerage, so I can't really be considered a senpai. Maiko hurriedly said. Yuta quickly regained her composure and spoke in a calm voice, Kazuma Jayaka Yuta. Just call me Yuta. Busujima Psycho. Just Psycho is fine. Marikawa Shizuka. After exchanging introductions, everyone became more familiar with each other. Yuta and Maiko now had a clearer understanding of their positions. Among the four girls, only Psycho and Shizuka were officially part of Lynn's peerage. The other two Rei and Saya were non-staff members? But probably not for long, right? Just look at the way they were staring at Lynn, eager to be marked as part of the peerage as soon as possible. Well, at least that was Yuta's interpretation of the situation. They were clearly just trying to gain power. What was wrong with that? Lynn clapped his hands, drawing everyone's attention. Alright, now that introductions are done, you all know each other, right? He could sense a bit of awkwardness between them. But there was no better way to strengthen bonds than fighting together. Let's go, time to gain some experience. Chapter 34, Unnatural Bouncing Frequency. Psycho Busujima has joined the group chat. Shizuka Marikawa has joined the group chat. Before heading out to train, Lynn handed the mobile phones he had brought from the main world to Psycho and Shizuka. The zombie world was also a modern world. They weren't unfamiliar with things like smartphones or chat groups. The only issue was that the networks in their world had long since collapsed. After joining the group chat, the first thing they noticed was the bold and unmistakable name of the chat group. Psycho smiled. She thought the name was quite fitting. Amazing. I'm officially part of Master's harem now, . Shizuka reacted loudly, clearly overjoyed to have joined Lynn's big family. These two women. Yuta narrowed her eyes, studying them carefully. Did they not have normal modern sensibilities? When she had first seen the name of the group chat, she had been speechless for a long time. Women who lived in apocalyptic worlds really couldn't be judged with normal thinking. Leaving the base, the desolate streets stretched before them. Yuta and Maiko halted for a moment, an indescribable feeling rising in their chests. Blood splattered the ground. And zombies. The thick, putrid stench assaulted their senses, making the air feel heavy and oppressive. Yuta and Maiko felt physically uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Psycho and the others remained completely unfazed. After all, they had seen this kind of scene countless times. Even Rei and Saya, who were in charge of logistics, had already grown accustomed to it. What, are you two okay? Lynn, leading the group, turned back to check on Yuta and Maiko. Huff and hail. Cough. Cough. They took a few deep breaths, trying to steady themselves. Only to be choked by the overwhelming stench. They covered their noses and forced themselves to respond, and no problem. We can't lose to Psycho and the others. This was Yuta's thought. We can't let Master Lin down. This was Maiko's thought. Lin, seeing their resolve, gave an order. Psycho, make some noise. Attract some zombies. Yes, Master. Psycho unsheathed her sword and swung it at a nearby building. Boom. A three-story structure several meters away was instantly sliced open, leaving a deep, narrow gash. Chunks of the wall crumbled, crashing to the ground with a loud bang. Lin observed the result. A low-level devil could only achieve this much. Yuta, meanwhile, took note of Psycho's abilities. That flying slash. Was that her power? Humph. It doesn't seem like much. Her archivist devil abilities were still superior. This round Kazuma Jayaka Yuta wins. The sound had shattered the eerie silence of the streets. A moment later, zombies began to appear, drawn to the commotion. Are these, the living dead? Seeing zombies up close for the first time, Yuta and Maiko felt a shiver down their spines. No, they're full-fledged zombies. Psycho licked her lips, excitement flashing in her eyes. Alright, let's start. She rushed forward without hesitation. Damn it! Yuta refused to fall behind. Even though this was her first time facing a zombie, she had already fought cursed spirits before. So what if they were zombies? Besides, she couldn't let that sneaky cat outshine her. Determined, Yuta stepped forward. She summoned the devil tome. Lightning strike! Boom! A brilliant blue lightning bolt shot down from the sky, striking the zombies directly. 7 or 8 zombies collapsed instantly, no longer able to move. Seeing her success, Yuta's nerves relaxed. She even snuck a glance at Psycho with an air of smugness. Heh! Lightning magic! Pretty cool, right? Psycho smiled and praised her. Very strong ability. As expected of the first member to join the peerage. Yuta felt like she had punched cotton. This woman had no reaction at all. Psycho, ever calm, reminded her. The weak point of zombies is the head. Aim for the head, it'll be easier. Thanks for the tip. Even though she had her reservations about Psycho, she still appreciated the advice. She just felt a little awkward. After all, she was the first. The first to meet Lynn. The first to become part of his peerage. Yuta, don't forget to train your other stats. Lynn's voice reached her. Yuta sighed. Yeah. She shut the devil tome. Dash. Evening. Bang. Yuta smashed a zombie's skull with the devil tome. She paused, staring down at the book. Did she still need this book? Devil tome at %, yuan. It was definitely covered in filth by now. Yuta sighed. Thankfully, the magic aura wrapping around the book kept it from actually getting dirty. It just looked disgusting. Ugh. Another zombie lurched toward her. She raised her book to attack. But then her vision blurred. Her magic power was nearly drained. Whoosh! A sharp sword slash cut through the air, instantly decimating the zombies in front of her. Yuta turned to see the culprit. That damn sneaky cat. Thanks. After fighting together for a while, they had gotten used to each other's presence. But a sneaky cat is still a sneaky cat. Yuta's gaze drifted downward. To that which shook 7 or 8 times per second. Yuta muttered under her breath, that ridiculous shaking frequency could win a Guinness World Record. Psycho. Yuta, take a break. Recover your strength. Huff. Yuta exhaled. She was indeed getting tired. She could still fight, but keeping the devil tome active continuously drained her magic. She looked up at the sky. Today had been the most intense day of her life. Endless zombies. Just making noise would attract waves of them. Even more than cursed spirits. This place was a perfect training ground. She had lost herself in the battle, fighting for 3 hours straight. Here, use this. Psycho handed her a can of milk. What's this? Yuta took it, looking suspicious. It restores stamina. Psycho's expression was a bit complicated. She and Lynn had tested it earlier in the day. The results had been outstanding. Yuta hesitated. With that expression, this couldn't be good. No thanks, I'll just replenish my magic instead. Replenish, magic. Psycho looked confused. What did she mean by magic replenishment? Yuta ignored her and scanned the area. Found him. She breathed a sigh of relief. She had been holding back all night. Time to collect some interest. She strode up to Lynn. Her wine-red eyes shimmered mysteriously. Master, my magic power is running low. To be continued. Master, I don't have enough magic power. Although Yuta was mainly trying to regain some advantage over Psycho, this asking for a kiss posture still made her cheeks heat up. Lynn glanced at the cans of milk carried by Rei and Saya, who were handling logistics. Then, he looked back at Yuta, who had a puppy-like expectant gaze. Forget it. I'll handle it myself. After all, his saliva had the same effect. Lynn increased the dosage and activated the body fluid recovery effect of Recovery Devil. MMMPH. Yuta's eyes widened slightly. Gulp. Master's lips are so tasty. It's filling me up. Not just magic power, her stamina and physical strength were also recovering. Had Lynn's magic replenishment skill been upgraded? Even though she was now fully recovered, Yuta couldn't help but feel curious. But more importantly, she had something else on her mind. Yuta wiped her lips and returned to Psycho's side. She swiftly eliminated a zombie, showing no signs of fatigue. How's that? Yuta boasted, magic replenishment is pretty useful, isn't it? Psycho suddenly realized something. So that's magic replenishment. She remembered how last night, when she had been on the verge of exhaustion, she had suddenly regained the strength to go another round after Lynn replenished her. Could that have been a form of magic replenishment? Psycho nodded. Magic replenishment. It really is useful. Yuta. Damn it. She suddenly remembered, this woman climbed into Lynn's bed last night. Just magic replenishment? She and Lynn definitely did this and that. This woman. Yuta gritted her teeth. Yuta. Psycho suddenly spoke. I sensed it just now. There was a strange hostility coming from Yuta. Not the feeling of an enemy. More like, a love rival? You like Master, don't you? Psycho smiled gently. Yuta was startled for a moment, then answered frankly. Yeah. Then you can relax. Yuta. What does she mean by relax? Psycho smiled, saying. I'm here to join you, not to fight against you. Yuta froze. This sneaky cat is definitely the type that men love. She could even say something like this without hesitation. But she was wrong about one thing. Yuta sighed and said gloomily. You've got it backwards. I'm the one joining you. Now it was Psycho's turn to be confused. You and Master. Yeah, you were ahead. So, she was first? Psycho's expression brightened with joy. Tisk. Yuta pouted in dissatisfaction. She knew Psycho would react like this after finding out. Even though everyone would eventually be devoured by Lin, no one could have him all to themselves. But hierarchy still mattered. She had already missed the first place. But it was her own fault for not taking the opportunity sooner. Now that they had talked things out, the tension between them eased significantly. And then, Yuta received terrible news. What? Second place is also taken. Plop. Yuta collapsed to her knees in defeat. Maiko, who had witnessed the entire conversation, gave a simple evaluation. Psycho a dignified lady with a noble presence. Yuta a tragic loser. It was already late at night. The girls were completely exhausted. Tonight, they had gained a ton of experience. Both Yuta and Maiko had truly felt the intensity of this world. What exactly is in that milk? Maiko muttered, feeling nostalgic. She had nearly collapsed from exhaustion, but after drinking a can of milk, she had been instantly refreshed, and even managed to keep fighting. Hearing Maiko's question, Shizuka's face flushed red as she instinctively hugged her chest. Psycho's eyes also turned subtle. Maiko looked at them in confusion. What's wrong? And nothing. Psycho shook her head. It's definitely a recovery item. As for how it was made she could find out on her own. Lin's bedroom. Psycho had specially prepared it for him. The biggest room in the house. Not only spacious, but the bed was huge. Perfect for everyone to update their blessings together. Shizuka was the first to strip down completely, leaving only a pink panty. She jumped onto the bed, her soft curves bouncing slightly. Then, she buried her face into the plush mattress, took a deep breath, and then flipped over, lying face up, waiting for Lynn to update her blessings. Psycho didn't hesitate. She also stripped down to just her panties. Purple. They had already done everything there was to do with Lynn, so there was nothing to hide. She showed everything openly. Of course. Seeing Yuta and Maiko's dumbfounded expressions, Psycho felt the need to explain. My clothes got a bit dirty while killing zombies. If I don't take them off, I'll end up dirtying Master's bed. Dirty? Yuta and Maiko looked at their clothes, practically spotless. Heh. We don't believe you. Yuta's expression became shifty. Why yeah, that's true. My clothes do feel a bit dirty. Her voice trembled slightly, but her hands didn't stop moving. She took off her top. When her hands reached her bra clasp, she hesitated but then glanced at the completely bare Psycho and Shizuka. She gritted her teeth. Screw it. The black lingerie slipped off. Yuta felt her entire body heating up. Of course, she wasn't as bold as Psycho or Shizuka. She crossed her arms over her chest and awkwardly slipped off her skirt with one hand. As for her black stockings, she kept them on. Psycho and Shizuka had bare legs. This was her advantage. Yuta-senpai, you. Maiko's tone became complicated. Didn't we agree to stick together? Why did you betray me? What was she supposed to do now? Maiko stared at the three on the bed, feeling completely out of place. Didn't we just come to update our blessings? Why did it turn into this? And isn't blessings supposed to be updated on the back? Shizuka-san, why are you lying face up? Maiko resisted the urge to complain. After hesitating for a while, she finally sighed, took off her shirt, lay on the bed, and unfastened her bra. Lynn saw that everyone was ready and began updating their blessings one by one. Marikawa Shizuka. Level, low-class devil. Race, devil. Master, Lynn Valifor. Strength, I-89. Agility, I-77. Endurance, H-140. Magic, I-63. Inherent skills. Recovery devil, omitted. Busujima Psycho. Level, low-class devil. Race, devil. Master, Lynn Valifor. Strength, D546. Agility, F389. Endurance, E467. Magic, D532. Inherent skills. Yearning for killing, omitted. Blade Devil, omitted. Next, it was Yuta's turn. Lynn looked at her, lying face down like an ostrich. This girl. Had she forgotten how Blessings was updated? Lynn raised his hand and smacked her firm backside, still clad in black. Yuta, turn over. Chapter 36, Perky Traits, Bonus, HMMN. A sharp sound echoed from the bedroom. Yuta felt a burning sensation on her buttocks, making her tremble uncontrollably. Then, she remembered her blessings had been inscribed on the front. Feeling shy, she turned her body slightly. In doing so, she locked eyes with Maiko, who looked at her in utter disbelief. Yuta's gaze wavered, a hint of embarrassment flashing in her eyes. So embarrassing. Maiko hadn't expected that Yuta, who had suggested she inscribe her blessings on her back, had actually chosen to have hers on the front. Yuta-senpai. Maiko's expression grew complicated. Your hand. Move it. Lynn reminded her again. Yuta shuddered once more. She hesitated, then finally turned her head away, closed her eyes, and her eyelashes trembling, slowly lowered her hand. With their restraints gone, her soft, full breasts spilled freely to the sides, rosy nipples standing perked and inviting. As Lynn updated her blessings, his gaze lingered on her perky breasts, appreciating their perfect shape and firmness. He had already seen Saiko and Shizuka's before. But Yuta's, they had their own distinct appeal. Each had their own charm, after all. Kazumajayaka Yuta. Level, low-class devil. Race, devil. Master, Lynn Valifor. Strength, G255. Agility, H146. Durability, H159. Magic, F361. Inherent abilities. Archivist Devil, omitted. Level, low-class devil. Race, devil. Master, Lynn Valifor. Strength, H103. Agility, H146. Durability, I89. Magic, G274. Inherent abilities. Yin-Yang Eyes, omitted. Spirit's Ear Devil, omitted. Once their blessings had been fully recorded, Lynn said, it's done. Hearing his words, Maiko and Yuta hurriedly put their clothes back on. Saiko and Shizuka remained as composed as ever, but for Yuta and Maiko, regaining their composure was proving difficult. The four girls received their blessings records from Lynn and immediately checked their progress. Lynn, too, analyzed their current states. There wasn't much to say about Shizuka, she was a support-type devil, so it was natural that her stats weren't growing as quickly. Besides, this was only the first day. That said, even as a devil, she still had some combat ability, just not as pronounced as someone like Saiko. As for Saiko, there was no need to explain. With her ability, yearning for killing, her stats naturally outpaced most others. Yuta had also killed quite a few zombies tonight. That was commendable. Compared to before, her improvement was impressive. That being said, as part of Lynn's peerage, she had already been surpassed by Saiko. Then there was Maiko. While her performance tonight wasn't bad, her Spirit's Ear Devil ability had almost no effect in this situation. By comparison, Maiko was clearly more suited for worlds with cursed spirits. For now, she would just have to focus on improving her fundamentals in this world. The girls, satisfied with their progress, felt their efforts had paid off. But when Yuta glanced at Saiko's stats, her expression froze. Are you sure you only joined Lynn's peerage yesterday? Saiko smiled and nodded. Yuta. Maiko gasped. Yuta-senpai looks pale again. Yuta let out a pained cry. Yearning for killing, how is an ability this broken even allowed? It was over. This was an absolute defeat. In every sense. The next day. Yawning, Yuta stepped out of her room. She was such an idiot. Really. She had only wanted to stay in this world so she could be closer to Lynn. But she hadn't expected last night to turn out the way it did. As she walked through the house, she could still hear the echoes of Saiko and Shizuka from last night. Those damn cows! Yuta clenched her teeth, nearly biting down too hard. What frustrated her even more was that, despite herself, she had actually listened to those sounds, and imagined Lynn in her mind. She wasn't the only victim, either. Maiko, looking rather exhausted, sighed deeply. The blessings update last night had already been shocking enough. But what followed after? That was what truly shattered her worldview. This family is just. And when she thought about the fact that she was also a part of this family now. Maiko sighed again. Mom, your daughter can't guarantee what she'll become in the future. For the next period of time, Lynn's peerage followed a simple daily routine, 3 main activities repeated over and over. Eating, sleeping, and fighting zombies. Of course, Yuta and Maiko had an extra obligation, school, at least on weekdays. It was worth noting that Maiko only stayed in the zombie world for a few days before choosing to return home before dusk. After all, she had a mother waiting for her. Maiko's mother worried if she stayed out too late, and ever since she saw Lynn personally escorting Maiko home, she had completely misunderstood the situation. Now, she believed Maiko was living with her boyfriend. Today, Supernatural Investigation Club. Yuta and Maiko were preparing to head to the zombie world as usual. Since both of them were already familiar with that world, Lynn had no intention of going with them this time. His exact words were, as mature peerage members, you should learn to venture into dungeon worlds and train on your own. As their master, he couldn't always accompany them. He had his own matters to handle. For example, Lynn's home. In the living room, Konako Tujao leaned against Lynn's chest, watching a defeat screen flash across the TV, disappointment clear in her eyes. No matter how hard she tried, she just couldn't surpass her senpai. Lynn patted her head and reassured her, it's okay, you're already very good. You're just one step away from beating me. Konako tilted her head back, staring up at him. Her golden eyes flickered. Senpai, you've said that so many times already. Haha, have I? Konako watched him, exhaling softly. Forget it. I'm already happy that you're playing games with me. She stood up, preparing to use teleportation magic to return home. Before leaving, she suddenly paused as if remembering something, then reached into her pocket. Oh, right. She pulled out 2 items. When the Kaiku heard I was coming here, she asked me to give these to you. Apparently, Sana gave them to you. After Konako left, Lynn examined the items. A key and a water magic scroll. He was slightly surprised, unsure what Sana Satrai was thinking. To be honest, their first meeting had been anything but pleasant. And after that day, they hadn't spoken again. Sana had never followed up about the raiding game. Lynn had even been wondering why she hadn't contacted him. And now, she had passed something to him through Konako? Well, whatever. It was already here, no reason to refuse. He handed the water magic scroll to Yuta to copy into her devil tome. As for the other item, he picked up the key and examined the address attached to it. It seemed to be for a high-end apartment. Looking outside, the sky was overcast, dark clouds gathering. It looked like it might rain soon. Since he had nothing else to do, Lynn decided to check it out. On the way, a light drizzle had already started falling. But as a devil, all he had to do was coat himself in magic, and the raindrops couldn't touch him. Shiki Apartments. Lynn took out the key and double-checked the location. This should be the place. He wasn't entirely sure. Glancing around, he prepared to ask someone. Then, his eyes landed on a beautiful blonde girl sitting in a nearby park. There was something familiar about her. Lynn narrowed his eyes. Could she be a character from an anime? Opening his system panel, he checked, only to see his evil pieces flashing wildly. Okay. Confirmed. Lynn turned and walked toward the park. Since he was already here, why not recruit a new peerage member first? Click. Shiina Mahiru sat on the swing, the rain falling around her. A pair of shoes stopped in front of her. She blinked in slight surprise, then slowly looked up. A handsome young man with black hair and crimson eyes entered her vision. She didn't feel even the slightest bit of unease. Instead, she instinctively responded, it's just a hobby of mine. I won't catch a cold, but thank you for your concern. Lynn. How practiced is she at this? That smooth, automatic rejection left him momentarily speechless. Sensing his conflicted expression, Mahiru felt a little embarrassed. Some people had approached her earlier, and she had just turned them down out of habit. Now what? Would it be awkward to take it back? As Mahiru hesitated, Lynn spoke again. It looks like you need some help. No, Mahiru started to refuse instinctively, but Lynn cut her off. Maybe I should make it clearer. His eyes locked onto hers, his crimson gaze deep and unreadable. Do you need a devil's help? Mahiru was stunned. She who was always called an angel had just met a man who called himself a devil? Chapter 38, I Want to Be a Bad Girl, Bonus. Devil. Mahiru didn't know how to react. Chuyunibio? No. If I don't say something, will he feel embarrassed? She hesitated, feeling a little concerned. Wow, so you're really a devil, huh? Lynn. If you put a little more emotion into that, it would sound much more convincing. Sorry. Mahiru lowered her head apologetically. I think I messed up. Lynn shook his head. It was clear she didn't believe him. But that was normal. He had tried recruiting Aoyama Nanami several times before, only to be brushed off. How could ordinary people, those who had never encountered the supernatural, believe in the existence of devils? After some thought, Lynn took out a long-forgotten devil flyer. This was a tool created by the devils of this world as part of their sales system. If someone needed assistance, they could use the flyer to summon a devil and request a commission. Naturally, the devil would receive an appropriate reward in return. If you ever have a problem, just use this and call my name. Mahiru took the flyer instinctively, then suddenly muttered, so it's a sales pitch. Ignoring her comment, Lynn said, remember my name Lynn. Leaving the flyer and his name behind, he turned to leave. However, just as he was about to exit the park, he suddenly stopped and walked back. Mahiru looked up at him in confusion. Do you know how to get to Shiki Apartments, Unit 5011? Mahiru, I'll take you there. That address is right next to mine. Shiki Apartments, Unit 5011. Thanks. Mahiru shook her head. It's nothing. Then, she entered the neighboring unit. Seeing that, Lynn also stepped into room 5011. The moment he opened the door, he was hit with a strong sense of luxury. Tisk tisk, as expected from the eldest daughter of the Citri family, she really went all out. His eyes swept across the lavish decor and high-end furniture. Every possible amenity was accounted for. He wasn't sure if the apartment had always been like this or if Sana had someone furnish it after giving him the key. Either way, it was his now. No need to be polite. Alright, let's set a teleportation coordinate for this place first. On the other side. Because of the rain, Mahiru decided to take a bath to warm up and avoid catching a cold. As she removed her clothes and placed them in the laundry basket, the devil flyer Lynn had given her slipped out. Mahiru paused for a moment, then picked it up. Inside the bathroom. Soaking in the bathtub, she absent-mindedly stared at the flyer in her hands. Could devils actually be real? She suddenly chuckled. What a ridiculous thought. As if that could be true. The idea that simply chanting a name could summon a devil, only a child would believe that. Still. She recalled his name. Lynn, right? Humph, let's expose your trick. Mahiru focused on the flyer and whispered, show up, Mr. Lynn. The moment she finished speaking, she laughed again. Laughing at how childish she was being. But soon. She couldn't laugh anymore. Buzz. A dazzling light flashed within the bathroom. A glowing purple magic circle emerged from the devil flyer. The next second. With a loud splash, Lynn materialized and landed right in the bathtub. Lynn and the completely naked Mahiru locked eyes. His expression turned complicated. Your choice of summoning location is really something else. Ah. Sometime later. Sipping on a cup of tea, Lynn casually asked, so? Why did you summon me so soon? Mahiru gave him an awkward smile. Could she even explain? She had only wanted to test if the flyer was fake, just a little experiment. Who would have thought it would actually work? And... Mahiru hesitated. Mr. Lynn, are you really a devil? I am. Lynn shrugged. Besides, didn't you see it for yourself? It's just hard to believe. Mahiru's thoughts were a mess. Devils actually exist. But Lynn didn't seem like the demons in legends. Weren't devils supposed to be evil? Yet, Lynn was not only handsome, but he also didn't seem dangerous at all. Well? Have you thought about it? Thought about what? Mahiru blinked. A commission. Lynn gave her a look. What exactly did this woman summon me for? Just to let him watch her bathe? Was this some kind of exhibitionist stunt? Mahiru finally realized. A commission. She absent-mindedly fiddled with her hair. What should I do? Wouldn't it be bad if I called him here for nothing? Actually, there is something. A shadow crossed her eyes as she recalled something. Her mother had lectured her again today. She had always tried so hard to be a good child. Why couldn't her parents love her? Taking a deep breath, she looked at Lynn with determination. Mr. Lynn, please teach me how to be a bad girl. I've had enough of this angel act. Bad girl, huh? Lynn thought about it. There were many ways to go down a bad path. But could Mahiru really handle it? After all, it was easy to be bad when you weren't good in the first place. Why not take it a step further? Lynn's crimson eyes flickered slightly. If you want to be bad, how about becoming a devil instead? Huh? Mahiru blinked in surprise. A devil, like Mr. Lynn. That's right. Lynn nodded. When it comes to being bad, devils fit the role perfectly, don't they? It was practically a professional match. Mahiru pondered this for a moment, a hint of curiosity surfacing. She had always been called an angel, but what would it be like to truly become a devil? However, if I turn into a devil, will I look weird? She asked hesitantly. Do I look weird? Lynn met her gaze, waiting for her to examine him carefully. Unable to hold his gaze for long, Mahiru turned her eyes away slightly. Alright then. I want to become a devil. She agreed so easily. Lynn was a little surprised. Agility, I0. Durability, I0. Magic, I0. Inherent ability. Fallen devil. Gains holy, light and dark attributes. Fallen Wings, allows release of light and dark energy attacks. Accelerated agility growth. Devil transformation, chaos mode. Dash. Lynn stared at her status with a subtle expression. Fallen Devil. A fusion of fallen angel and devil abilities. What kind of absurd skill is this? But. Ding. You have obtained the skill Fallen Devil. Lynn raised his hand and channeled a bit of magic. Buzz. A strand of light attribute magic appeared. He reached out and touched it. There was no burning sensation. His expression shifted. Wait a second. So, as a devil, not only did he not take extra damage from light-based attacks, he could use light energy to attack other devils. His. Lynn took a sharp breath. A single skill had completely erased his greatest weakness as a devil. Light and holy attributes were a devil's natural nemesis. When facing an exorcist, angel, or fallen angel of equal strength, a devil was at an inherent disadvantage. But now, with Mahiru's existence, that weakness was completely nullified. This was huge. Angels were amazing. Angels were great. Wait, did this mean he could pretend to be a fallen angel now? What's wrong, Mr. Lin? Mahiru looked at him curiously. Mahiru, you're really my lucky star. Flushed from the unexpected praise, Mahiru looked both embarrassed and pleased. After copying her blessings, she dressed and checked her status. Lin had just explained the blessings system, so she skipped straight to her skill list. Fallen Devil. Her lips twitched. Fallen. Fallen Angel. Mahiru. Seeing her stunned expression, Lin almost burst out laughing. But he still took the time to explain just how useful the skill was. I see. Mahiru's eyes widened in realization, then curved into a smile. As long as it's useful to Mr. Lin, that's all that matters. Who cares about falling? Falling was great. She didn't care how powerful Fallen Devil was. As long as it could help Lin, then it was a good ability. As usual, Lin pulled Mahiru into the chat group. Fallen Devil has joined the chat. She noticed the chat group's name. Lin's Peerage Harem Group. Mahiru stared at the name, completely dazed. Harem? Was Lin's peerage really legitimate? Ding. Coincidentally, a message popped up in the chat. Kazumajayaka Yuta? Chapter 40, Addiction? Lin's Peerage Harem Group. Psycho Busujima, Fallen Devil? Yatsuya Maiko, hi? An angel just infiltrated the devil chat group? Maiko, who was currently grinding for experience in the zombie world, stared at the screen in confusion. An angel had entered a devil's den. Wait, she misread it. But still. Fallen angels were problematic in many ways. She clearly remembered the three-faction war recorded in the basic knowledge of the underworld file within the chat group. Fallen Devil, no, I'm Mr. Lin's new peerage member. He just insisted I use this name for my online handle. Mahiru's face burned. She knew this name would cause unnecessary reactions in a chat group full of devils. But she glanced at Lin's profile. When Lin spoke, she couldn't refuse. Mr. Lin, would you like to have dinner together? Mahiru's eyes held a hint of expectation. It had been a long time since she'd eaten with anyone at home. Lin had no reason to refuse a meal prepared by his peerage member. It's delicious. At the dinner table, Lin gave his highest praise. Compared to the instant noodles Yuta made, this was 10,000 times better. Mahiru's eyes curled into a happy smile. Meanwhile, in the zombie world, Yuta stared at the chat messages. So, while she was grinding for experience here, Lin had been out recruiting another woman. Lin's Peerage Harem chat group. Kazumajayaka Yuta at Sigma Man, Master, I need to replenish my magic. Maiko, seeing the message from Yuta, immediately got chills. Then she noticed the way Yuta was glaring at her. Maiko. Ah. Senpai, I'm going to, level up now. Maiko bolted in an instant. Yuta scoffed, but the pink tint on her neck betrayed her feelings. She wasn't jealous. Not at all. But with another woman added to the peerage, she did feel slightly threatened. Her thoughts drifted to the battle suit she had ordered before. Her face grew even hotter. The outfit had arrived long ago. But when she finally checked it, she realized. The bottom of the outfit could be opened directly. Who in the world designed something so convenient? Ding. A new message popped up in the chat. Sigma Man, Shizuka, don't you still have some milk left? Yuta's lips twitched. After updating blessings together, Shizuka's recovery devil ability had been fully exposed. Who the hell wanted to drink that kind of thing? It was nothing compared to Lin's saliva. Wait, no. What was she even thinking? That was way too shameless. On the other side, Maiko, who had just escaped from Yuta, saw the new chat messages and suddenly had a complicated expression. She remembered how she had once commented that drinking breast milk was something that only happened before the age of 2. Yet now, Things had somehow spiraled into this. Or, should she try drinking Lynn's saliva instead? Both options felt very questionable. Maiko was torn. Meanwhile, in the main world, Lynn looked at Yutao's message and felt speechless. Has this woman been craving my saliva more and more lately? Whatever. He needed to take Mahiru to test her fallen devil ability anyway. Might as well go. Mahiru blinked. Another world. When she heard Lynn was taking her to another world, she was momentarily stunned. Wasn't this pace too fast? Reincarnating as a devil was one thing. But immediately traveling to another world? She never imagined that simply becoming a devil would completely separate her from her past life. Her once colorless world was beginning to change. Being a devil is amazing. Her caramel-colored eyes sparkled with excitement. Even world travel was possible. Mr. Lin was truly incredible. As she gazed at him in admiration, Lin activated his magic. Teleportation magic activated. A flash of purple light. Lin and Mahiru vanished. They reappeared inside the Supernatural Investigation Club. Mahiru's eyes were wide with amazement. Teleportation. Where is this? The Supernatural Investigation Club, Lin explained. This is where my peerage members stay when at school. He briefly explained things and told Mahiru to report here tomorrow. That's right. Mahiru was also a student of Shuchen Academy, a pure student. Though her parents didn't treat her well, her family was undeniably wealthy. Before entering the portal to the zombie world, Mahiru hesitated. Are all of Mr. Lin's peerage members leveling up in other worlds? Yeah. Okay. Then I'll work hard too. Mahiru clenched her fists, pumping herself up. Zombie world. The moment Lin arrived, Yutao immediately noticed him. It was like she had a built-in radar for him. Her eyes lit up. Ha! She had just said that Shizuka's milk was enough, but here he was anyway. Humph. Alright, let's introduce the new member. Mahiru bowed slightly, her expression polite. Hello, everyone. I'm Shiina Mahiru. Please take care of me. Yutao's face stiffened. Okay. So he didn't just come for her. She suddenly felt a little down. Lin had brought Mahiru here for the usual reason, testing a newcomer's abilities. But since he was here, to be continued.